Just like we need deep rest for physical vitality and health, in the same way, on a soul level, one of the best things we can do to deepen our sense of well-being and spiritual health is to give ourselves spaces where we feel a sense of deep rest. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Allow the breath to move fluidly in and out. And prepare now to travel to a space where you leave behind all beliefs, experiences, all the stories going on around you. You turn your back on them in this moment, and you enter a space of pure, absolute stillness. A beautiful sanctuary of light. In this space, you can feel your purity and innocence. It's as if nothing has ever happened to you. Your mind is open, carefree, simple, quiet, easy. And you feel connected to the natural, nurturing energy, both within yourself and outside of yourself. See yourself on the edge of a beautiful body of water. And with that feeling of lightness and ease, you just enter even more deeply into silence, observing the beauty of the sky, the water. Your mind is clean, clear, and so you take it all in. And you know somewhere deep inside that that beauty you see in the sky, in the water, in the world around you is also your beauty. And you enjoy that restful space of being beyond all stories, untouched by the world, in a sanctuary of pure, restful silence. And in this moment, ask yourself a question. Who would you be if nothing had ever happened to you? Who would you be? Feel that sense of freedom, expansiveness, that simplicity that has exquisite beauty in it. And allow yourself to take rest from the story of you as you enjoy the pure, simple energy of simply being. We don't have to think of letting go of our beliefs and stories and dramas as something we have to do 24 hours a day. But if we can shed those for small moments, we can give the soul a feeling of deep rest that allows us to return to the world refreshed, recharged, and full of a natural sense of vitality. And it becomes easier and easier to live from that space of our true, innocent, pure spirit that is naturally free of all of those.
Greetings of peace, everyone. A very warm welcome once again to all. Honored to be your host. I'm Dimple. Welcome to yet another live talk by Meditation Cafe on transforming my life through spiritual awakening with none other than Sister Sona Bahri of Abu Dhabi. This is our second episode of a 3-episode series. We did episode 1 about 2 weeks ago, the wake-up call. Now, if you've missed that one, it's all right because all our episodes are independent of one another. And we are putting the link for you for episode 1, which was on YouTube, in the chat box below. You can take a look at it, catch up on it later, because you now have your episode 2, which is the science of happiness. So a couple of announcements. If you want Mandarin translation, it is available. Just select your option below and select the language if you need to. And also have some writing materials with you, notebook, pen, paper, because I'm sure you would have a lot of things to jot down, points and tips, because we did have a very wonderful talk last 2 weeks ago on the wake-up call, and Miss Sona shared so much of wisdom on change being inevitable. And the sooner we learn to overcome our fear and move on, we can unleash what's in store for us in this episode 2. That's what I picked up from episode 1. So episode 2, the science of happiness. Questions: is happiness really a science, you may ask? Can we choose to be happy no matter what? So jot down all your points for all the questions that comes your way for a Q&A session that we will be doing later on after the talk. So for the speaker, so for those who have joined us for the first time and do not know our sister, Sona Bahri, she has tremendous experience. I call her very wise because she has so much of experience in practicing and teaching meditation for the past 30 years across 23 countries all around the world, in the European, Middle Eastern, Asia Pacific, African, Americas. I say wise because for me, as I understand, wisdom comes in the combination of knowledge and experience. It's not knowledge alone. So currently, Sister Sona, she is stationed in Abu Dhabi since 2008 and speaks 7 languages and started meditation since she was 16 years old. So let's hear about the science of happiness from Miss Sona herself. Over to you, Sister Sona.
Thank you, Dimple. Thank you so much. And a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you are in the world, to all the viewers. Wonderful to be together again on this beautiful platform. Indeed, happiness is a science. Some people call it the art of happiness, but today we're exploring science. Science means a study. when you think about what science is, even as a core subject. Science is a study that requires attention and discipline. And so the reason we say that happiness is a science is because happiness doesn't just appear, poof, out of nowhere. Real happiness, that is. Real happiness requires understanding, attention, and discipline. And so that's really what we're going to be talking about today, what we're going to be discovering today together. So once we've understood that, yes, there is a science behind happiness, I guess the next question is to work out what is happiness in itself. Because everyone has a different definition of happiness, right? And I would broadly say there are two types of happiness. So there is happiness outside in, which is a happiness that we all know very well in today's world. Happiness outside in is the happiness that comes through the senses. It's the happiness based on the people who are around me. It's based on the circumstances around me. It's based on whether life is taking me on an up or a down. And so the happiness that appears to be in the hands of the world outside, and then I kind of accept it. I look forward to it. It's the happiness that seems to be coming to me. That is what I would call outside-in happiness. And in fact, in today's world, there is such a focus on today's seeing, eating, touching, the feel of a cloth, the sight of something, the smells, the flavors. These are all happiness that come from the outside through my senses, and then I label it, bingo, that's happiness. You're feeling down, what should you do? Eat an ice cream, and you're happy. Feeling down, put your earpods in, your earphones, and listen to some nice music. There's happiness. You're feeling further down, well, book yourself on a holiday or a cruise. There's happiness. And I don't deny that definitely there is some happiness if you look for outside-in happiness. But there's a catch. And the catch is that, firstly, for most outside-in happinesses, mostly, you will have to spend money at some point in time, which means you're actually going to be always dependent on having money to have happiness. And the second thing is that this external happiness lasts very temporarily. So it's not a happiness that is there forever. It's a happiness that only exists as long as there is an input of external energy. As long as there is something that is available from the outside to grab and say, well, here is my happiness today. So if that ice cream disappears, or if your favorite meal is not there, or if the person who you want to take happiness from suddenly decides that they're not available for you, it might be that they're just not on the phone. It might be that they no longer want to be friends with you. If you book a holiday and you go for the check-in part of your journey, go to the check-in counter, and they say, so sorry, the flight is overbooked. What happens to your happiness? So it's a happiness that has its ups and downs and ups and downs. It's a happiness that is not fully in my control. So what do I do if I'm stuck with this kind of happiness? It means that in some way, shape, or form, I have become dependent on the outside world to actually give me my happiness. And if I get to that place, I'm in a very dangerous spot, because I'll never learn to control my happiness. I can never turn the knob of my happiness up, down, because it's the external world that is doing that for me. So outside in happiness is temporary, not going to be with me, not stable, not permanent. Very, very, very dangerous. Let's explore another type of happiness. And now we look at inside out happiness. Because the outside happiness, apart from being just making me more dependent on it, it's also a happiness that is a stimulation. What do I mean by that? When the senses are stimulated, I become happy. Yeah. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? Seen people screaming and shouting on a roller coaster? And they say they're happy. Well, I rather call it they're stimulated. Because when the roller coaster stops, the happiness goes. They're no longer yelling and screaming as they were. Yeah, so stimulation of any of the senses can create happiness. You get a high, for sure. But as I said before, how long can you keep it going? Now, the second type of happiness, inside out happiness, where you're not stimulating yourself from the outside in. The second type of happiness is not a happiness where I'm dependent on my senses to give me happiness. The second type of happiness is a happiness where I'm not dependent on people around me doing what I want, or situations around me being the way I want. So the circumstances, situations, the expectations I may have of people or of the world, all of that is not going to be a factor to determine whether I'm happy or not. So in that situation, my inside out happiness is based on something completely within me. That's why it's inside out. So what is it that this happiness is based on? So happiness is a feeling. When we say I'm happy, we're saying I'm feeling happy. So the real question is, was my feeling based outside in or inside out? Inside out happiness is when I learn to create this feeling of happiness on my own, without any stimulation. Inside out happiness is one where I learn to connect my happy feeling with the precursor to every feeling, which is my thinking. Happy thoughts will lead to happy feelings. And these happy thoughts are not thoughts that are governed by what is going on in the world around me, not governed by the people around me, whether they're there, they're not there, available, not available, nice to me, not nice to me. No, none of that. So the outside in happiness is the happiness that is totally dependent on my thoughts connecting to happy events outside. Inside out happiness is totally dependent on my thoughts creating happiness, independent of what's happening in my outside world. So thoughts that are connected to things that don't change within me. As Dimple mentioned in the introduction, 2 weeks ago at session 1, we talked about how change is inevitable. Change in the outer world, everything outside is inevitable. You can't hold this moment in time forever, no matter how happy it might be for you. Things have to change. The only thing that doesn't change is actually the core of my being. It is who I am in the very center. And so at the core of my being, who am I? Who do I identify with? If I'm identifying with somebody who's changing all the time, then obviously, again, my happiness is not going to be stable. Because if I am changing, happiness is not going to change. So I need to re-identify with that part of me, which is always there, always available. It's a part that I call the core of the being. It's kind of like the very center of my soul. It's the part of me that has always been, is there, and will always be there, whether I tap into it or not. And this is the question. This is the little magical technique that we learn when we are seeking for real happiness. We learn to tap into that core again and again and again, and to attach my happiness to that core. And when I attach my happiness to something that is always there, that is constant, that is forever something good, then my happiness will remain forever. And this is the ultimate when it comes to inside out happiness. It's the deepest happiness. It's a never-ending happiness. And it's what we really want. It's just that because we don't know how to look within, we look outside. And we keep trying to buy happiness, find happiness on the outside. But if I were to use all that energy and turn and look within and find that place that doesn't change, I could be happy forever. Okay, let's find out if we can touch that core within us. So I'd like you to pick up pen and paper. So you're going to need to do a little bit of writing. So I'm going to ask you on your piece of paper to write down 3 words that you identify with when you describe yourself on the surface. On the surface, who are you? So what are your roles? What are your labels? So just write 3 things that identify you. What would they be? You might choose one of your roles in life, like I'm a mother, a father, your nationality, your religion, your culture, whatever, your profession, you know. So what are 3 things that identify you on a very superficial level? Okay, so you've got your 3 things. Good. Now, identify yourself based on your personality. What kind of personality are you? You know, when you remember someone, you remember that personality, you say, oh, this person is so kind, this person is so generous, this person is so helpful. So I'd like you to pick up 3 words that identify your personality. Yeah? I'll give you a minute to think. Okay, so now you should have 6 words. 3 words that describe you on the surface and 3 words that describe you on the personality level. Now, I'd like you to go a bit deeper into yourself and identify who you are at your core, at the very core of your being. Pick up 3 words that identify you. These might be 3 values that you have, 3 qualities that you know you are. There are 3 things that will always be there. They'll always be with you, no matter what you go through in life. It's almost like knowing the deepest part of you. What would you stand up for, no matter what? And so now out of those 3, I want you to choose 1. Out of these 3 words that describe you at the very core of your being, not the surface, not the personality, but the core, right at the base, the values, the qualities. Who am I? So have you got your 1 core? Everyone's got their 1 core. So what I'd like you to do now is if you can write that core of whoever you are in your chat box. And let's see what everyone comes. If you have the courage and you'd like to speak your core up, so everyone can hear you, if you can just put your hand up and we will unmute you. But if everyone can type into the chat box, who are you at your core? Are you honest? Are you peaceful? Are you loving? I want you to write the quality. So pure, honest, and caring. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Anybody else? Write 1 word. Out of the 3 words you chose, write the one that you connect with the most. What is that 1 word? And anyone who'd like to speak, who's got courage and can speak, you can put your hand up and we'd be very happy to unmute you so you can actually speak and say it. There's a lot of power in actually expressing who you are. Someone's saying the being, the human being. Yeah. And what would be the quality? We're trying to look for a quality here. And then we've got love, justice. That's a nice one. Survivor. Somebody says I'm a survivor. It's a very interesting one. Who are you at your very core? What is the word that jumps out and says, this is who I am? Equanimity. There's somebody who's always equal with everyone, you know, who doesn't ever discard anyone from their lives. Trustworthy. It's another very beautiful one. You can see how at your core, you know who you are. At your core, you know what you can count on, what will always be there, what is something that is unchanging, that never can be taken away from you. It's very interesting, isn't it? Resilient. Very good. Yes. Yep. Anyone else want to write? Who are you at your core? What did you discover about yourself? It's a very nice inner discovery. And the way this connects with your happiness is that if you discover what is always there, what is always going to be stable in your inner world, and you connect to that, then you can be assured that your happiness will also be more stable. Just as any external study of science, you know, needed understanding, needed attention, needed discipline. In the same way, external happiness. You have to study your life and decide, oh, that's where I get my happiness from, when you're outside in focus, right? And you have to put attention into that. So for example, you like eating donuts. I don't know how to make donuts at home. So I would have to identify a donut place. Firstly, identify it's the donut that gives me happiness, not the cake, not something else sweet, not the ice cream, it's the donut. Then which kind of donut? Then I have to make a trip to the donut place. Because if I order the donut home, it'll get cold, right? So I have to actually put attention into it. I have to know, there has to be understanding, there has to be a bit of attention. And then the discipline of regularly making sure that I go and get that donut every time I feel a little bit sad. So on a regular basis, once a week or twice a week, or I hope it's not every day, you have to eat the donut to keep you happy. In the same way, even inside out happiness needs understanding or knowing who I am. It needs attention on myself, on that core of myself, on knowing what is not going to change inside me, what I can always connect my happiness to, and that will always be there. And it needs not just knowing, not just attention, but it needs discipline. Another word that we use for that in our meditation practice is we say, it needs practice. It needs me to connect again and again with that core so that I know where to go to when I want happiness. And I start to create change in this dependent happiness on the outside world, on the donut, on the ice cream, on the holiday, on bringing a friend, to connecting inwards and going, well, this is something that's always there. This is something that if I link my happiness with, I don't need to pay any money. I don't need to go anywhere. I can just be happy. I can be happy because the inside of me is connected. And that will always give me a result. So there are some principles, there are some laws that govern happiness. And I'd just like to go through these laws with you, because the science of happiness is a study. And if I can understand this study, it's like I understand the secrets of happiness. So the first law, which we've focused on in our little workshop game, is the law of identity. Whatever you identify with has a direct link with your happiness. If my identity is linked to something that is temporary, my happiness will be temporary. If my identity is based on something that is permanent, then my happiness will be permanent. Even your personality, sometimes you go up and down in personality, don't you? If you identify and say, oh, I'm a very peaceful person as a personality, or I'm a person who's very enthusiastic and I'm always, the life of the party. And one day you don't feel like being the life of the party. You just don't have it in you. Then if you linked your happiness with this personality type, then you would be let down. Your happiness wouldn't be there at that time. And then you start to feel depressed. Oh, I wasn't the life of the party. Something's wrong with me. That's why it's so important to identify with the core. It's where all of your beingness begins. So the first law, or the first principle of happiness, is the law of identity. The second law of happiness is non-judgment. And why this law is so important is because in today's world, our world is based on comparison. I compare myself with others. I compare what I have with others. And as long as I keep comparing myself, I will never stabilize in understanding who I am and respecting myself. And unless there is that inner respect for myself, I can't be happy. I need to identify, connect, and respect with me, immaterial of who else is around me, immaterial of how good this person or that person is. Somewhere deep inside, this law of non-judgment means that I accept myself, I value myself, I respect myself, and that's all that matters. The third law, the third principle of happiness, which is another one where I think sometimes this world of today pushes us in the wrong direction, is the law of simplicity. Happiness is a very simple concept. Happiness is all about connecting my thinking to something within me that is stable. If I think on that level, I will feel happy. But the world has complicated happiness and said, you need to have all these things. You need to be all these things. You need to know all these things to be happy. It's a complicated happiness that the world offers us. Actually, that is not true. So I need to uncomplicate what I have created within me as a definition and a method to get to happiness. Happiness is a very simple destination. But to get there, we need to create change with the self. I think COVID times always remind me of what real happiness was about. Happiness was about being at home, connecting to the people around me, cooking my own food, enjoying my own company, picking up a book. You know, it was all about getting rid of the complications of my life. I didn't need to go for a holiday. Well, I couldn't. My holiday was going from one room to the next. That was the greatest change you could make. And actually, we were happy. Those of us who had learned to connect to our core, we were happy in this room and we were happy in that room. You see? Because your core is something you take around with you wherever you go. Therefore, if you're happy because of that core, then the game of happiness becomes so simple. Just take yourself around, connection to core. You know, you can leave everything behind in your life, but you can't leave yourself behind. You take yourself with you. And the fourth law of happiness is the law of contentment. And this is the greatest law of happiness. It's linked to the law of simplicity, and yet it's probably the greatest spiritual truth that ever is. The less dependent I am on the outside world, the more content I am. Contentment means the more full I feel. Contentment is a feeling of having enough. Contentment is a feeling that all that I need has been provided to me and will be provided to me. Contentment is the greatest precursor to happiness. The more I feel that I'm full, the more I'm connected with that energy of goodness at my core, the more I can learn to stay happy. And so, just to wrap up for now, and I do want to give you some time for questions and answers and also comments that you may have. If you can restore your identity, and you can connect to an identity that is more stable, an inner identity, then I can connect to a happiness that is more stable. Not a happiness that comes from people, not a happiness that comes from achievements, outcomes, situations, circumstances, events. And so the more I can learn to break the chain of this dependent happiness, the happiness that comes from my senses, the more I can learn to stabilize my happiness in an inside-out process. And so to create this change and to re-identify myself, you now have all the knowledge you need. You just need to pay attention and practice this again and again and again. And that way I become independent of external parameters that I think are going to create happiness for me. And as I close the doors of dependency, the doors of addiction, as I learn to be independent in my happiness, even when the world around me is in a state of fluctuation, even when people around me are in a state of fluctuation, I just think, well, I have a place that I can tap into and take my happiness from. So as I learn to create this independence, I'm learning what real happiness is. So I hope that helped you to understand the science of happiness, the study of happiness, a little bit more than what you did 45 minutes ago. And I'm now really looking forward to answering any questions you may have, or any comments that you'd like to make. If you could just write them on the chat box and send them through, so that we can actually discuss happiness on the ground in real life. And how do you get to that happiness in your personal life, you know, in your current situation and what you're going through, rather than happiness on the theory level. But let's answer questions around, okay, the actual thing that you're facing and how happiness seems to be blocked for you. Thank you. Dimple, are there any questions that people might have?
Actually, there's comments. I would say somebody said amazing. And I have a feeling now that I can see the happy of sad day. I'm not sure why they said see the happy of a sad day. So why did they mention the word sad? Maybe they want to elaborate. But seriously, I took so much from you today. What I could summarize is outside in happiness is temporary, but inside out happiness is permanent. That is what I could summarize it in a nutshell. It was so beautiful. I would request questions to please keep coming in so that we can answer questions that we have. Anyone has questions? Yeah, there is a question. Okay, the question is meditation a good way to connect to your inner happiness? That's the tool I use, and it helps me mostly feel inner joy all throughout the day.
So yes, meditation is actually a way of connecting to my innermost identity. And today we call that my core. If I can connect to my core, then what happens is I start to loosen, I start to disengage from taking happiness from the outside world. And as I start to connect this inner core to feeling a stable happiness, I become the master of my feelings. So my thoughts go in, I remember my core, it brings me a sense of happiness, thoughts of happiness, feelings of happiness. And when I'm there, I've taken back my power. Then when the world outside fluctuates, it gives me what I don't want, or it doesn't give me what I want, I'm independent. And I've recreated a pattern in my life. So yes, I guess ultimately meditation will give you happiness, but the process is to reconnect to that inner part of me that is stable. And that is really what meditation is. It's so simple.
Beautiful. And there's a question here. Reconnecting with what's authentic and permanent. That's a statement, I believe. So I guess that means meditation connects with something that's authentic and permanent. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, even my personality, we think of our personality, oh, I'm this kind of person. And sometimes our personality doesn't show us some very nice things. So I'm an angry person, or I get upset when this happens, or, and I remember myself as being just that personality. Even personality is nothing but habit, And if I remember my personality, I'm still remembering something that is temporary, because my personality can be triggered by the outside world. And so if I'm still in that state where I'm being triggered and remembering that, I'm still going to fluctuate. My happiness can't remain stable, which is why I really need to go even deeper to the authentic part of me, to that part of me which is always, always in all of us. I don't know any human being who would choose hatred over love. Yes, our personality sometimes learns not to like, to dislike, but it's more because I'm scared of what that person might do and make me feel. I've lost my power to stay loving in the face of, a difficult person or a difficult situation. Therefore, I choose dislike. But if I asked you, you want love in your life in the future, or do you want hatred? Everyone would say love. In the same way, peace. Peace is authentic. Peace is something that we all have within us. And peace is part of each one of us at the core. If I asked, do you want war or peace? I don't know anyone who would say war. We fight these little wars, don't we? And the office, at work, or at home, we have these sort of moments of conflict, war. But actually, it's not what I want. My personality gets triggered because I'm still relying on that personality. And the most wonderful thing that happens when I keep connecting to that part of me, which is authentic, that is very permanent, is that energy then affects my personality. And my personality starts to become more stable, which is really when I start to live my life inside out and my relationships start to heal. Yeah.
Lovely. I have a personal question. Somebody who sent me a direct message. Something that needs elaboration again. The writer says, giving is happiness and taking is sorrow. Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that taking is sorrow. So if you eat a donut or you eat an ice cream, that's not sorrow. It's pretty happy for me. But what I was saying is it's a temporary happiness. Because when I don't have that, I've become dependent on it. I've become addicted to it. So this is where I find that spirituality starts to become very effective in my life, because I don't stop eating yummy food. I don't stop going to nice places. I don't stop really having wonderful conversations and enjoying the company of people. But I take away my dependence of happiness on that. And I realize that if I can connect within and generate and create inside out happiness, then I can always come back to that as being my source of happiness. And everything that happens on the outside is wonderful. It's great. And I enjoy it. But I'm not dependent on it because I have an independent source of happiness, which is my inner connection with myself. You see, so I wouldn't say that taking is sorrow. If somebody gives me a gift, well, I can't say, oh, I'm so sad they gave me a gift. No. So if you want to give me a gift, you're most welcome to. But I'm not going to be dependent on you sending me a gift to make me happy. I hope that helps answering that question.
Yeah, it really is so perfect, because this is exactly what I was thinking. If something is coming to you, it does not necessarily give you sorrow. It does give you satisfaction, but being independent of it, that is not being dependent on it. That makes so much of sense. And somebody here says, thank you, and says, can you give a physical example with applying the principles you mentioned?
Sure. Well, I
And
think
elaborate more with real examples. Yeah.
Sure. So we've talked a lot about identity already, haven't we? So if I identify with my roles, my role of a mother, my role of as a professional, any of the labels that I have on the outside, if I no longer am functioning on that role level, what happens? Such a huge void in my life. And many people in the world call this the midlife crisis, where I've identified for so many years with a role, and then suddenly that role no longer exists. I think a lot of mothers in this world, they go through it, especially in today's day and age when children actually leave the home, 18, 20, they want to go study another country. Sometimes they don't see their kids for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And the role of the mother ends. And you know what they start to do? They start to wait for the grandchildren so they can become a grandmother. So they just shift the identity from this to that. And in between, oh, I'm missing my children. What do I do? So you understand the law of identity. My identification changes and I feel a void, a vacuum. I feel sorrow. So the second law, let me take up actually the law of simplicity, because that's quite connected. So this is about identification with who I am. Simplicity is about identifying with what I have and the processes in my life. If I am completely dependent on what I have to give me happiness, I'm in a very, very, very dangerous place, because if I don't have what I have today, I'm going to be very unhappy. I've had 3 or 4 friends actually come back from the UK, and this might be true for many parts of the world, where life has changed dramatically. They were telling me that the cost of living, the bills that they pay have gone up 3 times in the last 12 months. Can you imagine your electricity bills today? Can you imagine what you'd feel like if they went up 3 times, 6 times, 9 times? It means you have to start to adjust your life. So if I'm having to adjust my life and change, you kind of are going from having more complication to more simplicity. This is a very practical thing that's actually happening in many parts of the world. So as I'm adjusting, I'm finding it difficult because I'm not used to life, a simple life. If I were to ask you to, for the next 3 months, take away all the extras in your life, go back to basic food, basic lifestyle, no complications, no travel, nothing that is an extra, go back to simplicity, many people wouldn't be happy. That doesn't mean I'm asking you to live this way forever, but be as happy with simplicity as you are with complication. So if there is complexity and there is extra, fantastic. If it's not there, I'm happy with simple. So law of identity to do with myself, law with simplicity to do with what I have. Now, the third law is the law of non-judgment, which is one that we have to really practice. Most of us have the habit of criticizing or judging or even just comparing. You may not be criticizing, but you compare. The world is based on it. In fact, a lot of the things that I buy, that I'm attracted to in the world, is because I'm comparing what the ad is telling me to what I've got. The advertisement says you'll be happier if you upgrade. It's like my phone, I have a particular phone. And since I got this iPhone, there's already been 2 upgrades. And I'm really resisting getting a new iPhone. Why? This is serving me. I've got what I want. Why should I compare my iPhone with the latest iPhone when I don't need it? You see, I could easily go out and buy it, spend a bit of money, waste some money, really. It's not going to change my life. But what it will do is make me feel that I compared this with what's the latest model. And it makes me feel like I've upgraded myself. I've upgraded my happiness. You see? So this is where the law of non-judgment means not comparing myself, but also not comparing what I have with what's been offered by the world. I still have today in my house a fridge that I bought 15 years ago. It works perfectly. It's a large fridge. I don't need more. I have 2 fridges. I don't need more. But a friend of mine who came to visit me a few days ago actually noticed that I have the same fridge that I had 15 years ago. And the friend said to me, we bought our fridges at the same time. Do you remember? And I'd forgotten. And the friend said to me, why don't you buy a new fridge? You know, you can get double door fridges now. You can get triple door fridges now. And I thought, why do I need to compare when I don't need? So non-judgment is not about not judging myself and judging others. It's also judging what I need in life. So this is the law of non-judgment. If I keep judging and comparing, I can never be happy. And the fourth one is, I think, the precursor to every law that there is in the world around happiness, the law of contentment. And the law of contentment is a law which can practically be about fulfillment. What makes me feel full? Do people's comments and praise of me make me feel full? So this is, I'm talking real world, yeah? If somebody tells you you're no good, or you haven't performed at work to the level that you should have, and your appraisal doesn't go very well. If your mother or your partner or your child say, well, you know what, mum? You're not as good a mum as I expected you to be, or as good a wife or husband as I expected you to be. Or how come you're like this as my child? Your brothers and sisters are not like that. You know, what happens to my fulfillment inside? Am I taking fulfillment from the various things around in my life, in my world? Or is my fulfillment coming from a deeper knowing of who I am at my very core? That is the only contentment that will give me stable happiness. So these are real examples. You know, these are things that we face probably every week, if not every day. Is my happiness going to be based even a little bit on the outside world? Is it dependent? Or is it based on me? And then whatever comes, the inner me that is happy and content is going to enjoy it anyway. To enjoy is different to take happiness from. I enjoy going out for coffee with my friends. But if for some reason my friends cancel, it doesn't make me less happy. Okay, I hope that helped with practical real life situations.
Yeah, I just have one question come in just now, and there's a comment that I would like to read before the question. This comment, the person thanks you very much, says thank you so much, and amazing as always. And ever since I started meditation with inner space, there's been a shift in my consciousness. And listen to the ones on YouTube, and I recommend them for everyone here. So I would like to say thank you to that on your behalf and everyone here. And there is a question, we'll take this last question. How to find my core if I seem to have lost clarity of it?
Yeah, so I think in a quiet moment, maybe not a moment like now where, you know, we're all talking and enjoying being in each other's company. In a quiet moment, ask yourself, what quality would I not let go of at any cost? Yesterday, I was in 2 days ago, I was in a government organization in Abu Dhabi. And I asked a group of, employees there, what will you not let go of at any cost? And I thought they would come up with the usual peace, love, happiness. Do you know what they came up with? It was really interesting. Most of them came up with the word honesty, trustworthiness, these sorts of things. And later I found out it's a government organization. It's quite, it's quite a private organization. I found out most of them are to do with auditing and accounting. So I thought, isn't it interesting that the core of their personality has to do with honesty, with trust. And here they are, even their profession is so connected with that. And they hadn't realized it. So ask yourself in a quiet moment, what is it that I would not let go of, even if I'm faced with the greatest test in my life? I know what it is for me. It's kindness. I never want to stop being kind to people. I never want to hurt other people's feelings. That's my core. That doesn't mean that my personality sometimes doesn't waver, doesn't fluctuate. Sometimes I get triggered, but I keep reminding myself, Sona, you're a kind soul, you're a kind person. Go back to your kindness. So it's something that you can always rely on and that you can never separate from your soul because it's you. So in a quiet moment with a cup of tea or coffee, close your eyes and ask yourself, what is it that under any circumstances, I'm never going to let go? Okay?
Lovely. So that means if you lose your clarity or not sure of it, just go back and identify with your core. What is your core? Question it, what you are not willing to let go at any cost. So this is you. And yeah, I guess that's so beautifully said. And it is a wonderful sharing. Thank you very much. And I would look forward to the third part because I want to really fly free and understand how to take this to the next step. But before we meet again, after 2 weeks, I would love you to share an experience, a meditation experience with all of us.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'd like to request all of you now to put down all your pens, papers, your phones, whatever you have, and really make yourself very comfortable wherever you're seated. Just give yourself this time to reconnect to your core. Let it be the start of your practice, if you've not done this before, of taking back your power and creating inside-out happiness. So sit very comfortably and relax. And allow yourself to firstly scan your body for any tension and release it. Scan your shoulders, your arms, your fingers. Check your breathing. Let it be very easy. Any aches and pains in the body, just relax. Even relax the muscles of your face. Be very present with yourself. And just as we appreciate our physical self, the body, how much of a support it is to our life. Let me now turn within. And as I look inside myself, layer upon layer, I appreciate who I am on the surface, the roles and responsibilities that I play. I appreciate who I am in my relationships, the personality that I display. But now I connect even deeper. I connect to that part of me that is the innermost self, the core. It's a bit like the seed of the tree of my life. The goodness, the inherent beauty that I have within. And I connect with that self and gently tell myself, this is who I am. I am, and then whatever word your core is. So I am peace. I am love. I am joy. And repeat it to yourself. Create a feeling based on those words that you're thinking. What does love feel like? What does equanimity feel like? Feel it. Because the more I can hold this feeling, of who I am, the more I'm learning to create a stable happiness that comes from within. And as I respect and appreciate myself on this deepest level, there's a sense of fulfillment, a sense of deep contentment. That I don't need anyone or anything to make me happy. I am full. I am content inside. And so happiness starts to bubble up. And in this state, knowing myself, feeling myself, when I move back into the world, I can take this happiness with me into whatever I do, into whoever I'm with, into every situation. So I'm radiating happiness wherever I go. So now just take a deep breath in and let it out. And again, a deep breath in. And be very, very stable as you reconnect with life and you reconnect with your own happiness. Thank you.
Wow. I think this is the true meaning of enjoying your own company. So beautifully said. And just to remind everyone of our third upcoming episode on 9th of September, same time, Flying Free. This is Sona again. It was so wonderful to have her share, and I'm sure you would love to listen to more. So before we say goodbye, I would like to thank you, and I would like all of you, if you could switch on your cameras, let us all take a look at you. I'm sure Sister Sona would love to see who she's been talking to, her audience.
Yes.
And we can wave to each other. So let's have all your cameras on, please. It would be nice. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and do connect with us after 2 weeks for our next session and many more to come. Thank you, Sister Sona.
Thank you so much, Dimple. It's been wonderful.
It's
Thank
wonderful.
you all.